Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro RPG. And the winner of the poll this week, with a full 25% of the vote, was Werewolf the Dark Ages, which I'm really glad to get a chance to cover. Because, as I mentioned in the last video, the first time I covered this, it was in the Vampire the Dark Ages video. And really I only spent about 30 seconds covering this book, which isn't giving it a fair chance because it's really good. But we'll go over to that in a second. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, the loser in this week's poll was Master Book. And I'm afraid I'm a bit disappointed with this because I really wanted to cover it. You don't know what you're missing because it is the blackest of black role-playing games. Really, really interesting setting, and I hope when it goes into the winner of the losers poll to see if it gets a second chance, that it'll win that. I really would like to cover it at some point. Now, with those two out, we've got two games to go in. And I kind of decided to stick with a theme. Because I looked at the collection of new stuff I've got, and I've got the Fallout, Wasteland Warfare, the role-playing game. And it's still in the shrink wrap, because I only got it a couple of weeks ago. But I thought it'd be quite interesting to cover and have a look at. But when I chose that to go into the poll, I realised I only have one other game which is still in its shrink wrap. And it's this, Gurps China. You see, I picked it up a few years ago, back in the 90s in fact, about 25 years ago, because a friend of mine was wanting Rift's Mystic China. And I totally misremembered. I saw it on the shelf and I was like, Gurps China? I think that's what he wanted. So I grabbed it. Now he wasn't interested at all, and I really wasn't. So it sat for 25 years, still in its shrink wrap, still in the bag, unread and kind of unwanted. So it'd be nice if it wins the poll to finally open it and finally have a look through. But we'll see how that goes. Let's go over to the desktop and have a look at Werewolf the Dark Ages. So this is Werewolf the Dark Ages, and it's a historical sourcebook for Werewolf the Apocalypse and Vampire the Dark Ages. Because where Werewolf the Apocalypse is set in the modern day, and Vampire the Dark Ages is obviously set in a medieval setting, this bridges the gap, taking werewolves back into that setting. But it's kind of more than just, here's what werewolves are doing in the Dark Ages setting. It really builds up the werewolves' role in that setting quite fantastically. Because that's the time of, and I'll pardon if I don't pronounce this right, the Impersium, which is when werewolves were controlling humans. Basically, the whole thing with Werewolf the Apocalypse is that werewolves are the balance between nature and mankind. Whereas man will create cities and pollute and all that, and animals will just have no control whatsoever, werewolves are the bridge between that, and they're the police of humans, at least at that time. And that's why in modern day people are scared of werewolves. So this is taking it back to a time when the apocalypse is just a story to scare their puppies, where humans are totally cowed. The vampires are incredibly powerful, controlling from their castles and ruling overhead, or from above. But the werewolves control the wilds, and they are incredibly powerful. And it's an interesting setting from that. Let's have a look at the back cover first of all, though. Wolves at the door. The vampiric lords of the Long Night claim supremacy over medieval Europe, and yet they keep to their castles and cathedrals, worriedly watching the forests between. For great wolves hunt the wild places and pace the roads, and howls of anger echo across the moors. By day they walk as humans. When the moon rises, their hunt begins. They are the werewolves of the Dark Ages. Rage across the long night. Werewolf the Dark Ages is a supplement allowing Werewolf the Apocalypse players to explore the medieval world of darkness from the guru's point of view. This book contains just about anything you could want for adapting werewolves to the Dark Ages setting, from information on the tribes of the time to guidelines for crossing over with Vampire Dark Ages. Whether you want to try a completely different spin on medieval horror fantasy, recreate the deeds of your modern-day guru's ancestors, or even give the lupines in your Vampire the Dark Ages game some real teeth, this is the book for you. Werewolf the Dark Ages includes a dark medieval setting from the guru's viewpoint, including details on the Umbra and a close look at the British Isles. Full character creation guidelines for medieval werewolves including tons of new gifts, rights, and fetishes. Crossover guidelines for bringing Vampire Dark Ages characters into your werewolf game, lists of medieval equipment, and more. Recommended for mature minds. And inside, the artwork is absolutely glorious. White Wolf really has high quality artwork, and it's really, really nice. Lots of line art or black and white art here of the werewolves tearing each other's to bits. So we start off with a story detailing some of the background to get you into the tone of the setting. And then a contents page once we're into it. So, introduction, Dawn and Twilight. So it details the known world in the 12th and 13th centuries is when it's set. So the medieval times. How to use this book, suggested resources. Because obviously, while we're all used to fantasy, this is a bit of a more, it's the real world. So you might need to do a bit more research than just making everything up. But then again, it's a role-playing game and it's completely up to you. The Dark Wilds. So detailing how the werewolves clan together in this time when they are far more powerful. The Metis plight, because interbred werewolves aren't quite as common. Going through the other shapeshifters, so the Koraks, the Ratkin. Talking about the cities and the people, the nobility. Just going through everything to build up the setting for you. Got an overview of the British Isles, the Guru of England, how the fairies and mages are in that place. We've got Scotland. Scotland is a divided kingdom. Well, nothing much has changed. The Guru of Scotland. The lands of Caledonia were once the stomping ground of the mighty White Howlers, a tribe endowed with great strength. When the tribe fell into the worm's thrall, the Black Spiral Dancers spread from their homeland to the corners of the known world. Well, the Black Spiral Dancers are obviously one of the big threats in Werewolf the Apocalypse, but at this time there's a bit of a joke. Because they haven't risen to any kind of power. They are the failed werewolf clan, and because the rest of the werewolves are so powerful, the Black Spiral Dancers are just, well, you know, failures. Guru in Wales, and then Ireland. Mortals and Kinfolk and Note. I've heard that as one of the criticisms of this book, that it likes to book just about everybody as kinfolk. Instead of making humans capable of great things on their own, they have to have a mystical bloodline. Whereas people tend to think that if humans are being able to do incredible things on their own, then perhaps it would be more scary for the werewolves. The beginnings of mankind becoming powerful and werewolves themselves leading into the apocalypse and virtually being wiped out. The Holy Roman Empire, so we go through the countries of Europe, Eastern Europe, Russian and the Byzantine Empire, the Middle East and North Africa, just detailing areas of the world in a lot less detail, but just giving you an idea what's going on. Talking about the Worm and the Black Spiral Dancers, monsters, and then we're into the 10 tribes. So some of these are the ancient tribes of the werewolves, which are very, very common, but some of these are different. So we've got the Black Furies, which are exactly the same. The Bone Gnawers, again, exactly the same as the Apocalypse era. The Children of Gaia. These are all very familiar to players. The Fenrir. So instead of the Get of Fenris, we have the Fenrir, an older clan, which isn't quite as falling apart as the Get of Fenris into just wanting to fight. We've got the Fianna, the Irish ones. We've got the Red Talons, again from the Apocalypse. The Shadow Lords. The Silent Striders. The Silver Fangs. The Warders. The Warders of Man become the Glass Walkers, who are the technologically capable werewolves, the ones who can affect computers and mesh well into the modern day. But at this point, they're already doing that. They're becoming mechanics, they're becoming used to technology and dealing with humans in their settings. Warriors of the Long Night. So we've got the character concepts and how to build your character, where the skills differ, because obviously archery isn't really a major skill to be used in the modern game. Merits and flaws, gifts, just fleshing it out and making it more use to this particular setting. Rights, cairn rights, fetishes, the magical items of the werewolf world. What else we got here? Character creation chart. So step by step taking you through it, giving you help. So you're not just patching it in from this book. It's really taking you by the hand through character generation. Sit down by the fire. So explaining to the games master how to use theme and mood. What's your story's theme? What's your story's mood? And giving suggestions. Tips for the storyteller. Really helping games master get used to this setting and build the slightly darker stories. While the apocalypse is doom and gloom time, the werewolves are glorious warriors, but they're in a position of power here, so there's no real glory to be had. Or not in my opinion. Oh, I've left a bookmark in. This is obviously where I was looking at it at some point. Mere Mortals. The Worm. Just going through, giving the Games Master a guide to all these things. Other Guru. Werewolves of Note. Just giving you ideas what to put into your game. Blood and Fury. So, what the werewolves know, what the vampires don't know. Detailing what werewolves know of vampires in this era and what vampires know of werewolves in this era. Because it's not the modern day, there's not as much knowledge between the two groups. They are somewhat mysterious to each other. And there's a lot of fear between the two groups. Story ideas, so werewolves against vampires, temporary allies, rules crossover guidelines, so talking them through. What else we got here? The vampire abilities and how they relate to werewolves. An appendix, so horses. So, as travelling around the world, even your werewolf's likely to have a horse, rather than change into wolf form and run everywhere. They're not animals, you know. Armour, shields, just taking it into this era. Werewolves on the battlefield, sieges, lots of sort of things which are very familiar to fantasy players, but don't relate to a modern game, so do need touched upon in the Dark Ages sourcebook for Werewolf. We've got an index, and then we've got updated character sheets with the new skills, including archery and all that, for the Dark Ages. Like many of the World of Darkness character sheets, it's very long. It's 4 pages, because you've got so much stuff to pack onto them. And then we've got an advert for the Year of the Reckoning, 7 volumes of Righteous Fury in 1999. And that's Werewolf the Dark Ages. I really do love this book. I love the setting. I've talked a long time before about Werewolf being one of my favourite role-playing games. The idea of being this doomed species who is fighting for saving the planet is really quite cool. And this twists it a bit in an interesting new way. But anyway, I think I've wittered on for quite long enough, as usual. So thank you very, very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment below, as it does me massive favours with the YouTube algorithm. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.